So Yasser, Emmanuel Macron is going to be French president for the next 5 years. He was re-elected last night. How did French Muslims vote?
Well, first, what matters is that they did go to vote, and that many of them went to vote in the first round for Jean-Luc Mélenchon because he had changed his narrative. He was notorious for feeding Islamophobia, but 2 years before the election, he changed his rhetoric to trying to appeal to Muslim voters, and he massively gained their ballot. Now, when it comes to Muslims, we don't have any visibility yet, but from the reporting we saw in various news outlets asking Muslims about their intentions, many of them were split. They were either going to vote despite their willingness to boycott Emmanuel Macron, because many of them understood that Emmanuel Macron campaigned for the past 5 years in order to make sure Marine Le Pen would confront him in the second round. So he basically applied her program as we saw it in the past few years with the anti-separatism law and the non-stop controversies around Muslims. Another part was decided not to vote at all. That there's no point in me voting. It's like choosing between the plague and cholera. And to my surprise, almost not, but many of them, according to when I spoke to them on the ground, even when I spoke on the radio, on a French Arab radio in Paris, many of them said they would like to vote for Marine Le Pen in order to break the system and be behind and actually push someone who would provoke a crisis. Now, of course, that's an extremely dangerous bet, if not irresponsible, because even though Emmanuel Macron did apply Marine Le Pen's program when it came to Muslim, remember his Minister of Interior who said that she was, quote unquote, too soft on Islam, not Islamism. That's his saying. Marine Le Pen would actually take things to a far higher level. And my answer to that was, if you couldn't resist under Emmanuel Macron, do you think you will be able to under Marine Le Pen? So that's the picture that we had before the second round in France when it comes to French Muslim voters.
So most French Muslims did vote. And I guess the majority of those who did vote voted for Macron to keep the far right out. But you're saying that a minority of French Muslims probably did vote for Le Pen as well, just to kind of, as you say, break the system and expose the system, the true face of France.
Well, the proportions we don't know yet, whether most or half or third, but these are the three options we saw. But many, like most people who did some reporting on the Muslim vote or the prospective Muslim vote, many of them were like, they all hated Emmanuel Macron, all of them. And some of them were split. Either we take, we act responsibly and we cast a vote for Macron to prevent an even worse president, or we abstain and take the risk of seeing Marine Le Pen get elected. And honestly, Muslim institutions and Muslims are, whatever the tendencies are, wouldn't have been able to properly resist under Marine Le Pen. They couldn't do it under Macron, but with Marine Le Pen and the neo-Nazis and neo-fascists and the reminiscence of French Algeria, who don't even see French Muslims as French. They have this expression, quote unquote, French on paper, that they're only French because they have a French ID card. Otherwise, they're not seen or perceived as such. And honestly, one has to be very careful, be careful what you wish for.
So what can we expect now? 5 more years of Macron. What can French Muslims expect? More mosque closures, more organization, more kind of censorship?
Well, I hope the next 5 years will prompt Muslims to better organize and review their organization model. I chose not to be popular by saying what was wrong with the model of organizing, the constant appealing to the government before self-organizing, the rivalries between activists and organizations, the bitterness that makes it impossible to have solidarity networks. All of that has got to go. You have to choose a different model based on solidarity and for people to go beyond their little needs and their little narcissism in order for things to happen at the political level. But
is the right that division and rivalry that you talk about, is that based on I don't know, Tunisians versus Algerians
All
versus
of it.
Moroccans? Is
All of it.
nationality
It's
division or
everything. It's
sectarian, or what is it?
nationality, it's nationalities. It's a school of thought. It's personal pettiness and rivalries. Trying to be the go-to guy, because too many people think one organization is going to be the leader, or one person is going to be the leader. No, organizations on their own do not win fights. Coalitions do. So when you work together, that you manage to gain some momentum, and then manage to apply that momentum for political ends. But if you think you're gonna need one savior coming by and the providential man or who's gonna save you, you're just fooling yourself. And honestly, I hope the next 5 years will prompt Muslims to better organize. I'm not I'm not optimistic, to be honest. There are reasons to be very pessimistic. However, I still believe in mankind, and that people, under certain circumstances, the best of them can come to being.
My final question to you, Yasser, is: I mean, we did a poll a few days ago, and these are the choices that French Muslims face: Le Pen, Macron, boycott, abstention, or hijra. And hijra was the most popular answer. And obviously, our readers are not French Muslims; they're Muslims mainly from the UK and the Anglo-Saxon world, I guess, where Muslims live. Is hijra on the agenda at all for French Muslims, given the situation there?
For many people are.
Oh, really?
Around me and beyond me, beyond my first and second circle, even the third one, people are talking about leaving. They have been talking about it for years now, but now things have gotten so bad that now the options on the table are the UK, the US, the Gulf countries, etc. And honestly, I used to tell people, if you leave, who's going to stay to fight? But I no longer, I think if I were to say that today, it would be purely demagogical on my behalf. I cannot tell a person who fears for the bread of his wife and his kids, or the bread of her kids and her husband, that, stay here, you're going to be fighting. Who's fighting? And you can see that organizations are, stuck in their, rivalries and pettiness, are not doing the job. And to ask everyday people who are just trying to live peacefully, make a living for themselves and have a decent life, ask them to stay, that wouldn't be honest. And I don't blame them anymore. And when people come to me, I left when I was 19 years old. I left in the late 1990s, and I came back after all. I mean, I just, after some point, you're like, home is home, and that's where your heart is. But those who want to leave, yes, do it. If you have an opportunity, do it. Discover the world, and meet new people, and seize new opportunities. I'm gonna quote a friend of mine who's a sociologist, and among one of our best sociologists for the people who are 30, 40 years old today. He said, "This country does not deserve us." That's quite powerful, when you not only leave and say, I tried my best, I checked all the boxes, and I see this country still being obsessed with my identity, even though I did nothing wrong. So this country does not deserve us, so I left. And I think there's some truth in that. There is some truth, and the sole loser will be France. I wrote a piece for the New Arab about the economic impact of Islamophobia. Try to imagine a person who goes through a public school for 25, 30 years, and then can't get a job, at the level of his training, and has to, do a job at a lower level. And then there is, of course, an opportunity cost for for the country, because that's a public investment in that person, and that person is not returning anything when they access the labor market. Now, what happens when that person leaves the country altogether and goes to work in a rivaling economy? Now, of course, we live in a globalized world, and countries are competing for talent and skills and experience. I quoted a British banker in Abu Dhabi who was on TV like some 10, 12 years ago. And he spoke about these French Muslim graduates who would come to Abu Dhabi. And he said, we don't understand the French. They come here, they are well trained from the best schools, they are motivated, they speak 2 or 3 languages, they can adapt easily in our country, which means when they come to stay. So basically, France is giving us free gold. And honestly, if people want to leave, honestly, do it.
Yeah.
And I won't blame you for it.
Okay. A sad note to end on, but a very, very powerful note. Thank you very much, Yasser.
Thank you for having me.
And may Allah ease your burden, you and the Muslims of France.
To all of us. Thank you.